What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Podcast. I hope you guys have had a great holiday season and starting your new year off right. Today we started with a WWE pay-per-view, which they have, it seems, have changed the name. I believe they changed it to a Premier Live event. I believe that was the proper wording that they're gonna go forward with, which I saw some people shitting on, but it kind of makes sense, we're not really in the pay-per-view era, especially for WWE anymore, so, it kind of makes sense, and it kind of sounds cool, I'm not really opposed to it, so I didn't really see the big deal with that, and I think change was needed, so if that's what they're gonna go with, then fine, I'm probably still gonna call it a pay-per-view or PPV by default, just, it's kind of ingrained in my brain at this point, but, it is what it is, but nonetheless, we are on day one, and going forward, they're probably going to switch that name because January 1st is not going to fall on a Saturday or Sunday every year going forward, so be interesting to see what kind of concept they go with next year, and following that also as well, but we'll see, but today, I think the show tonight, of course, we got the unfortunate news. I think they broke on Twitter around 6. I caught it on the pre-show itself, though, right around that time frame, with Roman Reigns testing positive for COVID-19. Roman himself had actually sent a tweet out earlier stating that he did test positive for COVID-19, and due to the protocols, he would have to, of course, not show up for the pay-per-view tonight and sit out for however long the time frame is going to be. Obviously, we all know now here in the U.S. at least that the CDC have changed the guidelines for quarantining, so it's just one of those things. Not really going to get into that here, but I believe it has been changed to about 5 days instead of 10 days. But with Roman, it is a little scarier, and of course we all wish him the best. It pretty much goes without saying, but definitely positive vibes his way. But with him, it's a little more scarier than your average person because of everything that he's been through, right? With leukemia and just all the health issues that he's kind of been dealing with himself. I think it was 11 years ago when he was first diagnosed with leukemia. Pretty sure it was around that time frame. But regardless, it's through in the past. So, of course, we wish him all the best wishes, but that opened up a interesting dynamic with Brock Lesnar because obviously Brock is scheduled to be there at day one. You have a sold out, what they had built at least was a sold out crowd in Atlanta, Georgia, so you definitely don't want to leave someone like Brock Lesnar off the card, but what do you do with them? And I think that they made the right decision, and of course we'll get into the actual result of the main event later on, but it kind of reminded me of when they were faced with the dilemma back in 2017 for TLC, when I forget the sickness that broke out, but I believe Roman at that time also was impacted by that, and a few other people actually. I think Bray Wyatt was one of them also, but they had to change a few matches for that evening as well, and that actually was the night when Kurt Angle had ended up joining the Shield with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, which actually was a pretty fun match, I think that was actually Kurt's return after 11 years, so it's just crazy to see how things can turn out sometimes, and to be honest with you, it of course, you don't want it to be under circumstances like this with Roman, but when things like that happen, WWE is kind of forced to go in a different direction, and it's nice to see them switch it up sometimes, and to be forced to step outside of the box and kind of go a different direction and do something that is unexpected, right? And you kind of miss that feeling, and it kind of gives you a feeling like the old days too, where really anything can happen. And tonight kind of proved that point. So, like I said, we'll definitely get into that later on with the main event itself and Brock more in depth. But it was a sad way to start off the show, and you kind of didn't know how the pay-per-view itself was going to vibe, just because a lot of people kind of were under the impression, and maybe, I don't want to say myself included, because I was kind of looking forward to the show itself. I just had a feeling that WWE was going to really want to set the bar high with this one. So, of course, Roman and Brock was everything that I wanted to see, the main thing at least. But the show itself, I thought definitely held its own, and I think really played out well. And with the removal of that match, it could have put a damper on the whole night, but I don't think it did. And I think the crowd there was actually kind of lively, and that definitely plays a big toll as well with the crowd. If that crowd isn't into it, or if they're just kind of there and they don't really react, or they just kind of sit on their hands all the time, it makes a big difference. But the whole show itself, I think of course, some spots they probably could have been a little bit livelier, but hey, it's at the same time too, you just gotta appreciate having fans there, and I think they definitely played their part. But getting into the show itself, we started with the kickoff show with Cesaro and Ricochet versus Ridge Holland and Sheamus. This match actually kind of took a turn. Early on in the match, Ricochet, I believe it was he landed a knee when he was being flipped by Cesaro, and he landed right, his knee just wailed Holland right in the nose, and it probably broke it, the way he was bleeding and how busted open he was, which was gnarly as hell. But and that guy, like, you just feel for that guy. Like, this guy, like, whenever he gets going, he always gets hit by an injury, and hopefully this one isn't going to be major, and it's just like a minor, I mean, a broken nose sucks, but hopefully it's nothing major that has to require, like, any type of facial surgery or anything like that, and it's just like I don't want to say a normal nose break, but hopefully, nothing serious, he can come back within a few weeks and be good to go. But man, that show was just gnarly, and it shows that, like, anything can happen. And again, kudos to Sheamus and Cesaro and Ricochet for that matter too, for kind of calling an audible and just finishing the match itself out, while Holland, obviously couldn't continue, but just shows again what kind of professional Sheamus is, and the credit he doesn't get, and I think that he deserves, honestly. And depending on how things go from here, especially if Holland's going to be out for a bit, I would kind of love to see Sheamus kind of go and do his own thing, and maybe geared towards maybe a Shinsuke Nakamura Intercontinental title match feud. It doesn't even have to be drawn out until WrestleMania. I just think that Sheamus, that's one of the titles that he hasn't had, and of course, if you heard any interviews he's done or anything like that, he's kind of mentioned that that's one of the titles that he hasn't had. And of course, I think the Universal title as well, but the Intercontinental title more so, he hasn't had in his reign yet, and that's kind of what he's waiting to complete his collection, so to speak. So obviously he deserves it too, but I just think that would be a kind of good deviation, if nothing else. And kind of like with the Roman Brock situation and everything like that, when things kind of take a turn, maybe it's a good idea to kind of, when you have to call an audible, and don't force it or just put it on the back burner or anything like that. I say go full steam ahead with Sheamus, and that could kind of revitalize the Intercontinental Championship too. So we'll see if they actually go that route, but it's just an idea for now. But I hope they do something with Sheamus, especially, like I said, since it seems like Holland's going to be out for a bit. But the first match on the card itself was, of course, the Smackdown Tag Team Championship match, the Usos versus the New Day. It's one of those matches that for whatever reason, well, not for whatever reason, it's kind of obvious, but during the beginning of the match, I kind of got the feeling, like it kind of reminds you of like the John Cena and Randy Orton feud, right? Like it just felt like it was going on and on and on, it was never ending. However, the major difference with these two teams here is that for however they do it now, it just shows like the level of professionalism and the knowledge for their craft that they have, that they can somehow still make every match that they have together feel different. And even though you kind of see the same stuff, there's a level of excitement that's just, it's like an intangible. You can't really put your finger on it, but these two teams just have so much chemistry together. It's like on a different level, and kind of reminds you of when you had like Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys, right? Where you just had two teams that just gelled so well together. So this match, again, if you haven't, of course, like if you didn't see this pay-per-view or premiere live event yet, I would definitely check this match out too. If for no other reason, the way it kind of ended, and I don't know if this is a sign maybe for a return coming within the next few months, obviously since the Royal Rumble is right around the corner as well, maybe that could be a surprise return in the Rumble for a team, and that could kind of lead to maybe a feud leading into WrestleMania. Again, that's kind of like a long shot, but the Usos kind of won with a 3D, and if you obviously have watched WWE in the past or any type of tag team you wrestling of the Dudley Boys Team 3D, and I think it was pretty interesting that the Usos used the 3D, right? And it's just one of those things where you, especially in WWE, like wrestlers, I'm not gonna say they're not allowed to, because how would I really know, right? But you don't really have as much freedom, and normally you don't do things without it leading to something in particular that WWE is aware of, or that's specifically leading to a storyline, right? Or some type of angle or something to that effect. But I don't know, it in the same token too, they hit it, and then Pat McAfee kind of renamed it and rechristened it the 1D, right? Since they're the ones, and obviously the 3D kind of combined that, which is pretty cool. And if that wasn't written for him, he just kind of came up with that. Kudos to him. But I don't know, it's an interesting tidbit, but I think this match was very fun. The crowd was so into it, and I think the ending itself was pretty cool in the way they executed the move, and it looked really sweet too. So whether or not it really does lead to maybe a return for the Dudley Boys in the Royal Rumble, maybe if you have the Usos in there and the Dudleys, obviously don't make their entrance at the same time, every man for themselves, but if they kind of space it out or anything like that, maybe not in the Rumble match itself, maybe they just do a run-in, or I don't know, maybe it's not even going to lead to the Dudley Boys coming back at all, but I think it had to have been done for a reason, or it's just, it would be kind of odd and random to just kind of randomly call or give kudos to the Dudley Boys and use their finisher. So I don't think they did it for no reason, but we'll see where that leads to. The next match that we had was Drew McIntyre versus Madcap Moss. Just the name itself is just so ridiculous, right? Madcap Moss. Just, what are we doing here? But it was a pretty decent match. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't really expect much out of this match. It's just, and I'm not really here for Happy Corbin and their stupid jokes, and I know that's the point, right? But it's just too much now. Like, I'm over it now. I'm ready to move on. But obviously, we're not with what ended up happening later on after this match here with Baron Corbin attacking Drew in the back. That was a brutal beatdown, and they executed that very well. So I'm not going to give them any shit for that part. As much as I would like to see them move on, the beatdown that they did on Drew backstage was pretty brutal looking, so definitely got to give them credit for that. But I'm just ready for at least Corbin just to move on from this Happy Corbin. Like, I miss, like, the sad and bum-ass Corbin, but I know obviously that couldn't last forever, but I don't really like Happy Corbin and this joke shit that they do every week. It's just really kind of embarrassing. Like, it's just not even, like, I wouldn't even boo them if I was there in person. I would just probably get up and go get something to eat or something like that. And I hate to say that because Corbin is I'm a big Corbin fan, for the record. I don't know if I've actually stated that here, but definitely have on the WWE podcast. Corbin, I think, is highly, I don't say, maybe underrated is the right word, but underappreciated, I think, too. And I think that had they maybe framed him differently earlier on, he definitely could have been a champion. And maybe he still can one day, but I think that's way off right now. But I don't know, with Drew, too, like, I'd like him having a feud and something in a story, rather, to be doing without being in the title picture, since that's kind of crowded right now, or not crowded, but just preoccupied. But I don't know, man. I think maybe it's more so Madcap Moss that I'm just kind of fucking over at this point than anything else. But the match itself was fine, and I think Moss really he kind of showed that he can hang, And again, like, I'm hoping that at least Moss doesn't continue, right? If the three of them are going to continue, I hope obviously it's McIntyre and Corbin, but we'll see. But like I said, the beatdown that they did after this match and a few segments later, I just think that it was so well done. And if you didn't see the show, then I try to find a clip of that, because for whatever reason, like, it was nothing crazy that they did. I mean, I guess it was a bit, dramatic with the scaffolding that they had in the back, but I don't know, it's just something that you don't really see. Like, you normally just see, like, a kendo stick beat down or, like, a random chair to the back and shit like that. But the level that they took, it was different tonight. After that, we had the Raw Tag Team Championship match. RK Bro versus the Street Profits. Migos was there, being from Atlanta. They had shown up to kind of support day one. Their song was "Straightening," I think it is, was the song for their pay-per-view tonight. So everything just kind of tied in. I was kind of hoping, if nothing else, we see like a Cardi B appearance. Like her song is the one that they used for SummerSlam, I believe it was. So I just, it would have been like a cool kind of play-in, with her being married to Offset and everything like that, but maybe she wasn't available or anything like that. But if they didn't think about it, then whoever's in their PR or whoever reaches out and gets these celebrities kind of really missed an opportunity there. But they ended up escorting RK Bro to the ring, which was kind of a sight to see. Just seeing Randy Orton, Matt Riddle, and Migos just walking down the ring and in the ring together and kind of doing the poses and stuff like that. And then Migos ended up sitting ringside right near the commentator, but they had the red ropes, like kind of like, how you do the red carpet and shit like that. No carpet, just the ropes, but they were sitting ringside right there for the match, which I think the match ended up being maybe like 10-12 minutes, something like that. So not too long. And of course the crowd in Atlanta ate up RK Bro and Randy Orton in particular, but I think the Street Profits kind of held their own there too, and it was cool to see everyone kind of shake hands at the end of the match and get along and not have any kind of shit go down or anything like that, or the Street Profits kind of turn heel or anything. It was nice to see just a nice match against two teams, and the tag team titles were retained by RK Bro, which I think it definitely should have been. And I think that I kind of hope it leads towards the seeds being planted at Royal Rumble for a breakup for RK Bro, so it can lead to a WrestleMania match with Riddle and Orton. I think Riddle deserves it, and I think it's time. I think that you're kind of getting to the point where you're getting all that you can out of it, and I think Royal Rumble, especially with it being in St. Louis, Randy's hometown, I think you can take advantage of that. So we'll see if they actually pull the trigger there also, but the match itself was pretty good, and the finish with the RK Bro, I was about to say, with the RKO, with Riddle assisting by kind of throwing Montez, I believe it was, forward up into the air, and then Randy Orton catching him for the RKO was pretty sweet. So, and again, shout out to Ford, because that dude is just crazy athletic, and I will say every time I think of him and Bianca are just the power couple waiting to happen, and I just see 2 to 5 years from now, maybe not. 5 is kind of long. I would say 1 to 2, maybe too short. All right, 2 to 3. 2 to 3 years from now, I could see Ford and Bianca Belair just being a power couple, each having the heavyweight championship, respectfully, in their divisions, and just kind of running the WWE, kind of like a Hunter and Stephanie back in the day. So, of course, not to that effect, because you don't have the corporation and everything like that, and of course, who Stephanie McMahon is herself. So, not to that full effect, but damn near close, right? So I just think it would be pretty cool, and I think that if they don't do it, then they're obviously missing out on that. And like I said, that's still a few years off, but Ford is just money, man. He just looks like a star. He has everything, and obviously Bianca does as well. So they would be stupid and just, they'd be printing money if they pull the trigger on that. So hopefully they do in the future, but another solid match there, which I don't think anyone was expecting anything otherwise. After that, we got Edge versus The Miz. We got the Brood interest again by Edge, and it'll never get old, man. It's just such a sick and dope visual of Edge coming out to it, and kind of sucks that we don't see Christian returning anytime soon, and kind of just that whole tag team, and just kind of seeing that visual as a full tag team, and then of course get Gangrel in at some point. But I think it's cool that Edge is still able to kind of revive that, and they allow him to, right, with the Ring of Fire, and just kind of take full advantage of that. So I will vote to see that the Brood entrance anytime we can. But I think it would be cool, and I kind of wish we would have at least got one type of reunion with Edge and Christian proper doing it. But again, Edge is, and especially with the beard and everything, the glasses, like that dude, he just looks the part. Like in his facial structure, like it's dope, and his gear and everything. It's just so well done. So kudos and shout out to Edge for actually being able to do it, and WWE for allowing him to do it. But then, of course, Maurice ended up accompanying Miz to the ring, and the match started off in pretty much how you expected it to. And I think Miz actually got a decent amount of offense in, and there was a few times where I thought he actually may pull out the victory there. But, I mean, I am going to say I was kind of surprised that with how they had Beth show up, of course, Beth being Edge's real-life spouse. If you look back on it now, it kind of makes sense why she ended up leaving NXT. It kind of just plays into this timing-wise. But it was kind of funny. Like, she was obviously standing on the ramp, and I don't know if there was a delay hitting her music on purpose or if it was a mistake, but she stood at that ramp for a good 15, 20, 30 seconds, just standing there. And again, I don't know if that was the purpose. She was just supposed to stand there and build and build and build until the music actually hits, or if it was supposed to hit immediately and then she kind of does her little power walk down to the ring. But it got kind of awkward for a second, but regardless, once she made her way down there, of course, the distraction with the Miz set up the spear from Edge and the 1, 2, 3. But that's why I was kind of surprised at the way it played out there, just because I kind of expected the Miz and Maurice, not, of course, as a tag team, but the Miz with Maurice's interference, kind of setting up and getting the victory here, which would, of course, lead to a rematch and then a real reason for Beth to come out. So I was kind of surprised there, and I hope we still end up getting an actual tag match between the two couples. Whether I doubt it's going to actually play out to WrestleMania now, especially at this point, but I hope we get it maybe at the Royal Rumble, even if they have a tag team match, the two guys and actually two females that can both respectfully end up in their Royal Rumbles later on that night as well, so it's not even like it would prevent them from being in that match. But I don't know, I hope we get at least something else, and that wasn't the end of it for tonight, but it was, regardless, it was really cool to see Beth, and she looks fucking amazing, so shout out to her, and to think of everything that she does, the project, she's a mom, and the shape that she's in, it's amazing. She just, I believe, dropped a CD or an album a few weeks ago, and she, if you follow her on Twitter, she had been studying and getting, like, her master's degree, and the woman's just amazing. So, and of course, like I said, still being a full-time mom to two girls, so it's insane, like, it's amazing to see what you can really fit into 24 hours, and if you just really have the support and the means to do it, and she's taking full advantage of just all her talents, and it's kind of like enlightening, inspiring to see, like she didn't just put herself in one box, in one category, and the look, like, right, like she's not your just small average female, she's built, like she's a bodybuilder type, so, and it's just inspiring, like she's just, it's really cool to see, and her and Edge are such a cool couple, and that's why I said, like, I hope they actually play this out and at least get a tag match, and if you're gonna do it, especially with the timing now, you gotta do it at Royal Rumble. So I think, like I said earlier, if they don't do this, they'll be missing out on money here. After that, we had the Raw Women's Championship match. Becky Lynch is, of course, your champion, defending against Liv Morgan. A lot has gone into this story. A lot of people were upset by the outcome of this match with Becky retaining her title and Liv Morgan losing here, but I think it was right, and I'm kind of surprised that a lot of people wanted Liv to win here, even if Becky were to retain it within like a few weeks or even at the Rumble itself. I don't think you do that. I think the story here, obviously, long term is Becky and Bianca, and I think you want Bianca to have her moment, and with everything that Becky has done to Bianca, stemming from SummerSlam, going all the way up to what I expect to be at WrestleMania, I think that's the moment. And as much as I like Liv, and if it was a different time, maybe this wasn't her time, as much as I hate to say it. So I think they did the right thing here, and I think it was a good match. And I think they both looked like stars, and I think Liv was definitely elevated here, Say what you want about Big Time Bex, the heel version, or anything like that, but I was here for this, and I think that it definitely played out as it should, and I wasn't not going to say it was like a barn burner match or anything like that, but it was pretty solid, and like I said, shout out to Liv, and I think Liv was kind of elevated to a different level at this point. I think she's probably a little bit higher now than the rest of the roster, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's what you look for in feuds, you know? You obviously, to me it was obvious at least, you're not going to have Becky lose, right? But if you're not going to have your champion lose, the goal is to elevate them. And what is it saying? If you don't, what is it? If you don't go over, you get over, or something to that effect. You know what I mean? So I think that's what happened with Liv here. So I think they kind of played it perfectly with big time Bex, as much as I hate it. And side note, that graphic of Becky, that cartoon with the glasses that displays when she comes out for her entrance, it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of like distracting and really kind of corny. And I wish they would kind of change that, because it kind of takes away from her cool factor, which obviously it wasn't her choosing, but they just did too much with that shit. And now, as Mark Henry would say, it's time for the main event. Not to get all AEW here, but I'm going to kind of keep this short because I'm still not feeling too great. My throat's not really holding up as well as I hoped. But the main event itself, if you didn't see this pay-per-view or premiere live event, and I hope that's the right phrase. I could be completely off, but that's what I'm sticking with here, at least for tonight, until I look it back up. But if you didn't see tonight's show, stop what you're doing and go see just this match itself. Again, yes, we didn't get Roman Reigns, but what they gave us here instead was, I would say, and I'm not really a star person, but my opinion, I would say probably 4 stars. And, you know, I think that can be subjective, obviously, especially depending on how you feel about Big E losing. And that's I feel like a whole other story, which, again, I'm not going to get into tonight because, you know, a few things going on. But I think with the subtraction of the Roman Reigns-Lesnar match, WWE probably felt like they needed something big to deliver. And what else than delivering Brock Lesnar being your WWE champion, you know what I mean? And the match itself, I think, was great. I think every man played their part so well. I think, especially with the lack of time that they probably had to put this match together, the amount of guys that you have in this match, the size and the diversity of the match, diversity, I mean with match styles. I don't mean, you know, to reference anything else. But I think that the way that they set this up, and the fact that, in my opinion, the star of this match, of course, is obviously Brock Lesnar, right? That's a given. But the star to me was Bobby Lashley. I think the way that they positioned him, the amount of offense that he got on Brock Lesnar, that spear that he landed on Lesnar itself was just, it looked brutal. And the way that they ended the match with the visual of Bobby kind of looking back on Lesnar, and the way that they cut to Lashley a few times. Like, the first time you obviously they could have just done it by mistake, but the fact that they held on to that shot, they did that for a reason. And for me, I hope that leads to a Bobby Lashley Brock Lesnar match. And that, of course, a match like that, in my opinion, you'd have to do at WrestleMania. I do think that there's 2 ways that they're probably going to go with this, or maybe not probably going to go with this, but they could go with it. And I think that one's probably kind of obvious, depending on how serious they are with Lesnar and Reigns, right? Like, if they have really nothing else for Reigns, and they feel like at WrestleMania, and they feel like they have to get Lesnar back over to that side, then okay, fine. But to me, I kind of see Lesnar holding on to this title for a while. And at least until WrestleMania, and maybe it's just wishful thinking, right? But I could see a Lesnar-Lashley build leading into WrestleMania, and that kind of frees up Heyman. If you think about it, Roman just fired Heyman. They did his little video package on Smackdown. Lesnar has always claimed Heyman. I think it's very easy to move Heyman back to Raw with Lesnar. I don't want to say act like nothing happened, but you won't have Reigns to answer to being Heyman on Raw, because Reigns is on SmackDown and you're supposed to be holding to your brand split, right? And it's not really a conflict with Reigns anymore, so it's kind of a win-win. And if you think about it, if they want to go that route, just imagine the verbal promos between MVP and Paul Heyman, and just the build and the story that we can get, the video packages, the sit-down interviews that we can get. There's so much you can pull out from these two, and that's where I kind of hope this leads to. But regardless, I just love the fact that they actually did something kind of surprising, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, and they kind of pulled a fast one on everyone, which I'm here for. And again, it's expect the unexpected, which we haven't actually been able to or really believed anything unexpected would happen. And in quite some time, at least it feels that way. So I'm intrigued, and it actually gives you a reason to turn into Raw too, right? So I think that with every cloud, comes a bright and sunny day. So I think that, yeah, it sucks that, and again, we obviously all wish Roman the best, but I think you obviously let Roman sit out as long as possible and as long as he needs to. And I think it kind of is, I hate to say it, but it may be a blessing in disguise, because it'll free up some time and space for Smackdown and for other people to step up, and they'll be forced to focus on other people. And it's not even a matter of having to strip Reigns of the title or anything like that. Like, you let him sit out as long as he needs. When he's able to come back, in that time you should, because you really, what else are you going to be doing? You'll build up talent for him to go against. And like I said, if you're committed to keeping Lesnar on Raw and going from there, and of course you still have the Big E rematch that you can go to, like there's a lot that you can do now with Lesnar on Raw as the champion. I think that you can kind of really put a pause on the whole Lesnar and Reigns, and you kind of, it may be a blessing for WWE if they ever need like a rainy day, or they need to pull a card out of their back pocket and they need a big match, they can go right back to that in the future, because they haven't had that final conclusion yet. So it could kind of work out, kind of like the Becky Lynch thing, right? When Becky was supposed to face Ronda Rousey at Survivor Series, and Nia Jax punched her in the face, and then it delayed the match until WrestleMania, and we ended up getting the main event, and everything played out. So everything happens for a reason. I'm a true believer of that, and I think that, yeah, like I really wanted to see that match tonight, but it kind of gives us a reason to put it on the back burner again, and another new direction for Brock, and especially with this version of Brock, right? Like, I saw somewhere someone called him like the farmer Brock. I don't know, he's talking like it's just a new, it's kind of like a hybrid version of like the Beast Brock Lesnar, and then the early 2002 Brock, the version that was facing Eddie Guerrero, and just the character and the personality that he had, that we're finally seeing, So I'm excited, and like I said, it gives you a reason to turn into Raw, which they always can use with ratings being as they are, but that's a whole other topic. But again, the show itself, I think, delivered. I think there was a lot of opportunities for the show to suck going into it, and the vibe just being not there and just kind of killed. But I think they delivered, and shout out to everyone who contributed and put on a match tonight, especially those guys in the main event. They all kicked ass. So definitely go out of your way and see this. Maybe not the full card, if anything, if you don't have time, but definitely the main event, and I would say the opening tag match as well. But again, guys, I hope you have a fantastic new year. You stay safe. It was great seeing WWE off to a good start again. Yes, I kind of wish that they would have changed up there was a report, I forget, was it WrestleVotes? I think it was WrestleVotes, that they were going to try to like switch up the gear for the ring and stuff like that, the ropes, a whole new setup for the Titantron and stuff like that, but they obviously didn't go that route. But maybe we'll get it one day soon, but if not, it is what it is. I was, like I said, kind of looking forward to it, because I miss the days where pay-per-views is what I'm sticking with, but I miss when they had themes, right? And like every pay-per-view, that was cool, because with Sunday Night Heat, like sometimes I didn't even want to watch Sunday Night Heat because I didn't want to see the arena until like the pay-per-view started itself, to see what theme and what kind of setup they were going to go with. But it is what it is. They didn't go and pull the trigger on it, but the card itself and all the guys and girls still delivered. So definitely check it out, and I appreciate you guys listening to the show. Let me know what you think. I'm on Twitter at ASHMANNS, and the show's Twitter is at @KickAshPodcast_. Take care, guys.